With New Year's resolutions, many of us will make a vow to eat healthier, and that's a good thing. But what about our beloved pets and their nutrition? Greetings, naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black here, and I'm on a mission to provide better nutrition for cats and dogs because truthfully, all pet food is dead food, which is why we created Rough Greens and Meow Greens in the first place. We bring their food back to life with live vitamins, minerals, probiotics, enzymes, omega oils, antioxidants, and so much more. All in a tasty formula that your dog and cat will love. You can improve your pet's coat, digestion, energy, and have less vet bills. Let 2025 bring a new year and a new pet. Get a Jumpstart trial bag, normally $20. Get a 100% discount with promo code BESTFRIEND. You discover the shipping. Go to roughgreens.com, use promo code BESTFRIEND. Bring your pet's food back to life with Rough Greens. So good, your pet will ask for it by name.
Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Waiting to rise again.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the moment you've all been waiting for.
Locking down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hour number 2, Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. We're presented by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. Fired up, you're hanging out with us here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Saints, I think, can take their time hiring a head coach. I'll tell you why in 15 minutes. We got Take It or Leave It coming as well. But we start hour number 2 with LSU and Alabama on the hardwood tomorrow in Coleman Coliseum. LSU goes to Coleman Coliseum a lot. LSU loses in Coleman Coliseum almost every time. I'll look it up here. LSU has lost 964 straight games in Coleman Coliseum. That's probably not true, but it's a lot. And this one doesn't look great on paper, quite frankly. Alabama, under Nate Oates, has become kind of a machine, especially offensively. This is a team that is 16-3 on the year, 5-1 in league play. Their 3 losses thus far. They lost at Purdue, 87-78. Purdue's number 11 in the country currently. They lost against Oregon in Vegas. They lost that game 83-81. Oregon's currently number 15 in the country. And they lost to Ole Miss in Coleman Coliseum just a couple of weeks ago. The Rebels are 16th in the country, held Alabama to 64 points in a 74-64 win there in Tuscaloosa. Alabama offensively is just a force. They have scored 100 points 6 times. For reference, that's the second most in the last 75 years in college basketball. Over 106 times. They've scored 90-plus in 10 of their 19 games. So half the time, they are busting 90. They have scored less than 80 points just 3 times. That was in losses to Ole Miss and Purdue, and they actually scored under 80 against McNeese. Do with that what you will. So for perspective, Alabama's been held under 83 times, and LSU is averaging 67.8 points per game in league games. That does not bode well. So Alabama offensively, just some statistics. They play faster than anyone in college basketball. They're number 1 in the nation in possessions per game, and because of that, they're number 1 in the nation in points per game. They're 15th in the country in offensive efficiency. They just get so many shots. It's hard to be completely efficient when you're doing that. Y'all probably know at this point. If you don't, you just don't really like basketball, which is completely fine, but this has been pretty obvious, so those that watch relatively closely will know this. But Nate Oates has an offensive philosophy that he's spelled out very candidly. It's not a secret. It's just what they're going to do. They're going to try to get a shot up in the first 12 seconds of the shot clock, and they'd like it to be a 3. But one way or another, they're only going to shoot from 3 places the entire night. 3 places and 3 places only. They will shoot 3-pointers. They will shoot layups and dunks. They will shoot free throws. That's it. You will not see Alabama shoot a mid-range jumper unless they get a loose ball shows up and they've got to get it up before the shot clock and they throw it up as the horn goes off. But in the course of their offense, they only shoot 3s, free throws, layups, and dunks. That's it. And it's been wildly effective. They're 5th in the country in 3-point attempts per game. They're 21st in the country in 3s made per game. They are 57th in the country in terms of the percentage of their points they get from free throws. And if you're thinking they're going to shoot a lot of twos, they don't. They're 308th in the country in the percentage of the points they get from two. More often than not, they hoist up a three or they get fouled. And what this does is it does create some instances where they miss 6, 7, 8 shots in a row. But those 6, 7, 8 misses in a row don't equate to a lot of game time. And the other side of this coin, so they never do. They never go 6 minutes without a made field goal. If they miss 6 shots in a row, those come in a minute 45. It's just boom, 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 boom. But what it also does is it creates a flurry. And they'll make 3 of 4 threes over the course of a minute and 10 seconds. And that's a lot of points to have to deal with. And the Avalanche largely breaks through when they get going. They will turn the ball over. They are 253rd in the country in turnovers per game, and they're 113th in the country in turnovers per possession. So they will get going more quickly than they need to, but not all that often. And so the guy that makes this all go is Mark Sears. He is the active D1 points leader running the point for Alabama. He started his career at Ohio. Incidentally, they played here against Will Wade when he was at Ohio. He's got 62 20-point games. That is the most among active players. He leads the SEC in assists per SEC game, and he's second in points per SEC game. He's the guy that pilots this entire ship. He's left-handed. He makes a lot of shots. He gets to the rim. He feeds other players. He makes threes. He's the conductor of this whole engine for Nate Oates and Alabama, and he's the guy that LSU needs to try to slow down on Saturday evening. The other two guys that do a lot of scoring for Alabama are Grant Nelson, who is shooting 70% on twos this year. A lot of dunks and layups for Grant Nelson. He'll also step back and hit some threes. And then Aiden Holloway is a sharpshooter from three for them. He's shooting 42% from deep for the Tide. They will run a lot of guys at you. They just score a ton of points. Here's the deal. I don't have a way to sit here and blow smoke. LSU's offense has been pretty feeble in league play outside of Cam Carter cooking for a half against Arkansas. And if Cam Carter, at the pace this game is played, scores 31, 35 points, and Jordan Sears makes 6 threes, I think LSU can stay in it, assuming Alabama shoots it poorly. But the likely outcome here is that LSU can't keep up, one, with the pace, and two, with the scoring that Alabama continues to dump on you, and this thing gets away from LSU in the second half. It's pretty easy to see Bama scoring 100 points in this game. I don't know a way to break this down outside of, Bama just can't shoot today. Because I don't think LSU can do what Purdue and Ole Miss did to Alabama. Purdue is one of the best programs in college basketball the last 5 years, and Ole Miss has one of the best defensive coaches in the country who has now turned 3 different Power 5 programs into really good defensive teams over the last 5 years. So it's just not likely LSU can replicate that, and it's just not likely that LSU, who's scoring less than 70 a game in league play, is going to stop a team that scores 90 more often than they don't. I'll say this when I'm talking about Alabama basketball. It is impressive to me that Nate Oates can walk onto a campus when he got there that had Nick Saban, who has absolutely derailed LSU football season after LSU football season after leaving LSU. It can also have a softball coach that came to LSU and quit after 24 hours to go back to Alabama, and has a baseball coach that got caught up in an illegal gambling scandal, and Nate Oates is the least likable coach on that campus. Saban, guy who quit on LSU after 2 days, and then a gambling cheater. Those are the 3 other options, and I dislike Oates the most. That's impressive to get there and make that kind of impression right out of the chute. And Nate Oates was able to do that with me. It goes a long way when you're at the SEC tournament and you yell at my coach to get the blank out of here. And then just his general demeanor on the sideline and in press conferences, not a big Nate Oates guy. Doesn't hurt that he's got the Alabama, well, he doesn't ever wear Alabama gear. He wears the Blazers with plaid all over him. But He's an Alabama coach. They win a lot, and I don't love him. So I'm not going to look forward to watching him on the other sideline on Saturday night. And I hope that LSU springs the upset of the season so far in college basketball, which is basically what this would amount to. I just don't see a reasonable path to get there for LSU. They just don't have enough offensive punch to stick with the best offense in college basketball. And Alabama, quite frankly, doesn't even have to play great defense in this game. They just have to do what they usually do on offense, which is score 90, and it just doesn't feel like LSU is going to be able to keep up. So I realize that's not the sunshine and roses perspective on this Friday, and we're looking forward to a warm weekend after a freezing cold week, and you're kind of in a good mood after a short work week here. But I do have to break down the LSU basketball game, and it is being played tomorrow, so we'll leave it at that. LSU and Alabama, 7:30 tip tomorrow from Coleman Coliseum. Incidentally, I'll be at LeVert's Baton Rouge watching that one tomorrow night, so if you want to come out to ESPN Bet and see me, please do. We'll be hanging out and enjoying some cold pops and some awesome food over there at ESPN Bet. That's LSU basketball on the men's side in the rearview mirror. When we come back, there's some breaking news over the last 2 hours in the world of the NFL coaching carousel. How does that impact the Saints, and why I think it's a real big positive for New Orleans. We'll do that coming up next.
With New Year's resolutions, many of us will make a vow to eat healthier, and that's a good thing. But what about our beloved pets and their nutrition? Greetings, naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black here, and I'm on a mission to provide better nutrition for cats and dogs because truthfully, all pet food is dead food, which is why we created Rough Greens and Meow Greens in the first place. We bring their food back to life with live vitamins, minerals, probiotics, enzymes, omega oils, antioxidants, and so much more. All in a tasty formula that your dog and cat will love. You can improve your pet's coat, digestion, energy, and have less vet bills. Let 2025 bring a new year and a new pet. Get a Jumpstart trial bag, normally $20. Get a 100% discount with promo code BESTFRIEND. You discover the shipping. Go to roughgreens.com, use promo code BESTFRIEND. Bring your pet's food back to life with Rough Greens. So good, your pet will ask for it by name.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge, genesisofbatonrouge.com is the website. You gotta love Genesis of Baton Rouge. I love my time over there. If you haven't been by the dealership, go see it. When you go in, I've been in a lot of car dealerships in my day because I worked on that side of the insurance deal for a number of years. You see a lot of dirty, sterile showrooms. This is an incredible experience. It feels like you're in a 4-star hotel. They've got the rock waterfowl over there. They've got an incredibly comfortable area where you can get some work done if you need to near the service aisle. Got a big old coffee machine that's first class, can make the coffee any way that you possibly want it. They got snacks there as well, and their staff is incredibly welcoming. You're going to feel like a guest there and not a customer. That's just part of the experience of being a Genesis driver. When you think Genesis, think luxury. When you think luxury, don't think, I can't afford that. You certainly may be able to. Just get on by and see them. They're at Airline near Pico across from Women's Hospital. You can start your process at genesisofbatonrouge.com. Every car that's on the lot there at Genesis of Baton Rouge is online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. That's my friends over at Genesis of Baton Rouge.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Quirks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
The NFL coaching vacancies starting to dwindle down, and we talked right at the outset of this coaching cycle that, okay, where do the Saints stack up? Chicago's already open. New York's already open. We feel like the Bears, with all their salary cap space and Caleb Williams being there, that's probably a better spot than the New Orleans. And the Jets, they maybe won't move on from Aaron Rodgers, but the roster's in better shape. Ownership's not great, but it's in New York. It's probably a better spot there. Okay, well, Jacksonville comes open. They got Trevor Lawrence, a lot of cap room, but their owner's saying a lot of weird things. Nobody likes the GM. What's the deal out in Vegas? Is that going to come open? And well, what's Jerry Jones going to do with Mike McCarthy? And you're kind of weighing all these things, and you understand that the Saints had an old roster, not a lot of talent, $50+ million over the salary cap, quarterback entering what could be the last year he's in New Orleans. You got continuity in the executive team with the general manager and all of his surrounding cast of characters. Ownership's generally solid, spends money, stays out of the way. But where do the Saints rank? And you're kind of looking towards the bottom, quite frankly, even though there are warts everywhere with teams that are looking for a new coach. But now you look up, okay, well, you never really thought the Saints were going to get Ben Johnson, and they didn't. He went to Chicago. And the Saints very much were interested in Aaron Glenn. There's no doubt about that. But it was evident pretty early, at least according to Ross Jackson from Locked On Saints and LouisianaSports.net, that Glenn likely preferred the Jets job. So, yes, you do that interview. You make sure that you touch your base there, and you try to make your case, but you understand that may not work out. And then you start to look at the other names that the Saints have interviewed, and they'll talk to Mike McCarthy, and you look at Anthony Weaver, and look at Kafka up there with the Giants, and you're thinking, okay, that's kind of the pool that we're looking at here. Maybe Cliff Kingsbury, if he changes his tune, we'll see. Joe Brady for sure. And you're thinking, okay, well, are the Saints kind of fighting for any of these other spots? It turns out that whatever happened in Jacksonville, between Jacksonville and Tampa, Liam Cohen's going to go be the head coach of the Jaguars. And he was never really mentioned for the Saints. And if the Jaguars were looking for a young offensive mind, certainly Joe Brady and Liam Cohen would be the spots after Ben Johnson has been taken. And they didn't hire Joe Brady. And then you look out at Vegas, and you thought they were looking at more established names, perhaps Robert Saleh, perhaps Vance Joseph. And it turns out they just hired Pete Carroll. 73-year-old Pete Carroll, who the Saints, as we understand it, had no interest in. So now you're looking around, and you're looking at Dallas, who is apparently going to hire Brian Schottenheimer, and that's been the word for the last 48 hours. And the Saints are kind of sitting here going, okay, y'all may have picked first, but I don't know that anybody that was realistically on the Saints' radar outside of Aaron Glenn has been hired. And you're now sitting here going, well, we've got our pick. So there's no rush. There's no hurry. It's not like college football where you got to get somebody in there to get recruiting and fill out the staff so they can go recruit and make sure you work the transfer portal. No, you've got a scouting department that can handle the Senior Bowl and can handle the draft and can continue to do those types of things. You've got a salary cap department that can continue to work towards restructuring contracts. Certainly, I think, in my opinion at least, I would like the head coach's input on some of that, but maybe Mickey Loomis and Kai Harley and that whole group, they're going to do their salary cap gymnastics the way they're going to do it anyway. So really, all you're doing is waiting. And you can talk to Mike McCarthy whenever you want. Starting on Monday, you can talk to Joe Brady whenever you want. You can talk on Monday to Cliff Kingsbury whenever you want. Anthony Weaver, Mike Kafka are guys you can talk to whenever you want. Time is no longer of the essence. Every single time you get into a coaching search, whether it's for a coordinator or a head coach, you always have to assess the rest of the hiring pool and understand where you may need to be aggressive, where you need to be assertive, and make sure that you get your guy. It's likely to me that the Jets knew that it was possible that Aaron Glenn was going to get on a plane and go to New Orleans. You have to stop that. That is like college recruiting. There's a time where you say, you're committing to us, you're not getting on that visit going somewhere else. And if the Jets decided Aaron Glenn is our guy, you've got to make sure you understand what his other options could be and that you don't allow him to explore those. They didn't. He may have left the facility after the interview, but he didn't get on a plane and fly to New Orleans. Really couldn't because there was snow everywhere, but point remains. So now the Saints are in an advantageous spot. You're not under the proverbial gun as far as we need to make this decision very, very quickly. You just need to do what's right. And I think it's probably a good thing the Saints are not under the gun because I feel like that could lead to some hasty decisions that may not be in the best interest of the organization. I've told you this many times. I can get on board with Joe Brady. I can get on board with Mike McCarthy. I can get on board with Anthony Weaver. I'm having a little bit tougher time with Mike Kafka. And I could probably get on board with Cliff Kingsbury. There are a lot of positives that go into all those different candidates. But now the beauty is you don't have to race. So there's no excuse. You've got the ability to survey the board and make it happen. And if you're a Saints fan, like, your confidence level may be reasonably high, it may be 0, and neither one of those would be unfounded. Like, there have been some significant issues, and also the Saints have done some great things. It's been a while. Mickey Loomis was in charge when they got this right, too. So you're now the belle of the ball because you're the only job left, and that was one of Mickey Loomis's talking points in the press conference. Like, well, it's one of the 32 jobs, so somebody's got to take it. Now it's the only one. It's one of one job, assuming Dallas goes the way we think it is. So now they really have to take it. So I don't know if that's the best way to approach it, but it doesn't make it any less true. If any of these guys wants to be an NFL head coach in 2025, come on down to the French Quarter because that's where you got to be. So it's a break for the Saints. You never know. You can't forecast this stuff, but it's a break for the Saints, and now they make their move. I told you on Monday, if the Saints hire a coach this week, I think it's Aaron Glenn. If they don't hire a coach this week, I think it's Joe Brady. I still feel that way. I would not in any way rule out Anthony Weaver. I would not in any way rule out Mike McCarthy. I don't think Kingsbury's likely. I don't think Kafka's likely. I think that's a guy the Saints have had interest in for some time. I don't think they're going to make him the head coach. That's a tough sell. So, and again, I don't think it's Darren Rizzi. That's very clear. So I think that we're probably, as I sit here on Friday, I think we're probably Tuesday before that announcement's made. I think it's likely, in my opinion, that the Saints know what their top choice is. And I think they make that clear in an interview next Monday or Tuesday. And I think that gets done. If you've seen how quickly this stuff gets done, like the Jaguars got rid of Balky, boom, they hire out in the cold Liam Cohen, who the Bucs were trying to get on the phone. This happened pretty quickly with Pete Carroll today. Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn were hired less than 72 hours after their team finished their season. So I think we're right there on the edge of this when the games go final on Sunday. And I think there's a decent chance that the Saints have talked to Joe Brady's agent, Mike McCarthy's agent, whoever, and have kind of made that clear. Like, now that the dust is settled, you don't really have to play games anymore. I feel like there's a pretty good chance that some significant groundwork can be laid before an interview's done. Now, there's a chance, as I say all that the Saints really haven't made their mind up. And while I probably would have said 3 days ago, what are you doing? Go! You don't have to do that anymore. They don't have to know. They can take their time. Again, that may inspire a lot of confidence in you, Saints fan. It may inspire none. But it just is the situation. I think there's optimism that they can get this thing right. Then you've got to go through a sizable rebuild. If you'd like to see how that salary cap situation shakes out, Ross Jackson's got a great piece on LouisianaSports.net that talks about it. But you can start that process with what is a vital hire to this organization and then a big-time free agency and draft period coming in this offseason, and then an even bigger one likely next year. But this is where it's got to start, and I feel like the Saints are in a pretty advantageous situation as we sit here today. Our show is brought to you by One Bath & Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is that website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years of redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. Look, closet space is not something that some people think about. I certainly didn't think about it a ton in my previous house. And then my wife-to-be moved in, and she hated it. So we had to make a decision whether to redo the closet situation in our current home or to move when we decided we wanted more space. Thought that there would be an addition to our family coming, which there now is. So we gotta create some more space, and let's look at a place that's got some better closet situation. So instead of calling David Duvall, we moved. You don't have to move. You can call David Duvall and start that process with a free consultation. He can customize a closet to your specifications. It will be functional for you, and it will be aesthetically gorgeous. Look at the pictures on the website, onebathandclosets.com. David Duvall and his team do fantastic work. They'll do right the first time and leave the competition behind. It's David Duvall and One Bath and Closets. You can find them at onebathandclosets.com. We're rocking and rolling here on a Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, presented by Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. LSU women's basketball coming up with a huge game in, I guess, an hour and a half from right now out in Columbia, South Carolina. We'll briefly talk about that. We still got some more to do over the last half hour of this wild week with a holiday and snow days and all that. We're bringing things to a close, and so we'll do all that over the next 30 minutes right here on a Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Audio Video Security Solutions, avssla.com is the website. Also invite you to check them out on Instagram. It's at avss_BR. Keep in mind, they were the People's Choice Award for the best vendor at the Parade of Homes last year, showcasing some of the amazing stuff that they're able to do over there at Audio Video Security Solutions. I didn't really know what their capabilities were, but Mitchell Fisher came over to the house when we were moving in and said, here's some of the things that we'd like to look at for y'all, and we were just thrilled with what they were able to do. They've got an incredible sound system put into our kitchen, living room, and out there on the back patio, and we use it almost every single day. When I'm cooking, which I will be doing here in a few hours, you can bet that I'm either going to have a podcast or our station or some tunes on, and we do that with the touch of a button on my cell phone here, which I didn't even know we could do. We can, because the folks at Audio Video Security Solutions, and if they can make it easy enough for me, I promise they can make it easy enough for you, and you'll be thrilled with the customer service after the sale. It's Audio Video Security Solutions. Find them online at avssla.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp.
LSU and South Carolina are going to play in a big-time women's basketball game, a pair of top 5 teams coming up in an hour and a half. And LSU's 20-0. South Carolina is, I believe, 18-1 on the season. This game got moved back a day, but game day is still there, and it'll be an incredible environment there in Columbia today. I got to say this. Kim Mulkey does something that I don't think I've ever seen a coach do. I've covered coaches that have won at the highest level like Kim Mulkey has. I've covered Les Miles. I've covered Paul Maneri. I've covered Jay Johnson. I have spoken at length to Beth Torina, who has played in the Women's College World Series. I've heard hundreds of Nick Saban press conferences, Bill Belichick press conferences, and I've never heard a coach do what she did on our morning show last week. And it's not the first time I've heard her do it. She said with Jacob and T-Bob last week, we're not supposed to go to South Carolina and win. And that, to me, while it may be true, Vegas says you're a 2-touchdown underdog in this game, okay? So that may be true. It's her fourth season. It's her 4th season, and she's won a national championship. And she's saying, well, we're not supposed to go there and win. And I don't know that I have a super hot take about that, because candidly, a regular season college basketball game on the men's or women's side, even an NBA game on the men's or women's side, doesn't ultimately mean that much. So a football game, you can't really say that. Football game can mean everything. A basketball game at the college level in late January, you can recover from that one pretty quick. But I just have never heard a coach approach things like that. She said that about the team that won the national championship. We're not supposed to be in the Final Four. We're not supposed to be this and that. And she said it last year too. And while I sit there and wonder about that comment, I also watch her coach so hard and demand so much from her players. Last year, I don't know what happened, but 2 starters from the national championship team got suspended from the team, and we didn't really know much about it, and one of them never came back, and the other one, Angel Reese, missed time, and I mean, that's some discipline. That's some coaching. And then to kind of flip and come on here and go, not really supposed to win. It's interesting to me. I don't think it matters, but it's interesting. Now, this game, I could paint you the picture that LSU and South Carolina in this game, it's a big, big deal. Big rivals, national champs the last 2 seasons, I should say. National champs the last 2 seasons, coaches that are celebrities in the sport, Hall of Famers, may not like each other all that much. LSU's going on the road, 2 teams that are a combined 38-1, like all that stuff. And I could try to sell you that, the winner of this is likely to get a 1 seed, so you won't have to deal with UCLA or USC. You may not have to deal with UConn on your side, but all that's really, it's projecting. Like, you don't know what's going to go on over the next month before we get to time to pick the bracket. So to me, and this may be right or wrong, this is a fun game to pay attention to. Is it crucial? I would suggest not. South Carolina drops the second game. Not that big a deal. LSU loses their first game. They're 20-1 with a loss on the road to South Carolina. Not that big a deal. It's just a good opportunity to be competitive and see where you stand. And that, to me, is an exciting thing. Y'all know how I feel about college football with a 2-team playoff and how I feel about college baseball. I like the fact that you're able to learn from a setback here or there, and you don't have to be at your best all the time. And even if you do lose a game or do not play well for a couple of weeks, you can turn it around and get where you need to go. Today, while it is fun to compete, I think it's just a measuring stick game. If LSU goes to Columbia, South Carolina, and wins the game, okay, they can beat anybody in the country. I know that South Carolina doesn't have Asia Wilson. I know that Camila Cardozo's with Angel Reese in Chicago. Like, I know they're not the stars that we've seen the last few years are not necessarily on this team, but you know how good they are because you know what that program is. If you go there and win, you can beat anybody. If you go there and lose by 26, well, you might be a bit of a, to use a pun, paper tiger based on what you've done through 20 games. You go there and lose by 8, okay, I think you're probably right where you need to be. Just keep working. It's a good measuring stick game, and I think that's kind of what I'll take it as. I don't know. It sounds like that's what Kim Mulkey's taking it as, if she's going to get on here and say, well, I'm not supposed to win. I don't think Dawn Staley will be saying the same thing. Probably not supposed to beat LSU. And I'm certain that the crowd inside what was Colonial Life may still be Colonial Life. I don't know. Whatever it is on South Carolina's campus. And it's probably not even on campus because a football stadium is not on campus. I don't know that either. But in any event, the fans that are there in Garnet and Black are not going to think, we probably shouldn't beat LSU. They're going to be fired up, and it's going to be a great environment. So LSU, with their explosive backcourt, with their explosive offense, with a front court that's trying to get up to speed outside of Morrow, we'll see what these gals can do in what's the toughest environment to play in right now in the sport. I'm curious to see how it all shakes out, and I guess we'll get a good measuring stick or barometer as to where this is. Beck, you've listened to Kim Mulkey talk over the years. Like, why do you think she's saying, well, we're not even supposed to go win the game?
I think sometimes Kim knows, or at least expects, that her players are going to know or see what she says in these press conferences or these interviews, and it's just maybe a way to motivate her players. I mean, it's kind of like that the route of saying, okay, I'm gonna say, oh, we're not gonna win this game, or we're not expected to win this game. Maybe she's doing that. I mean, I can't see another reason why she would be doing that other than to try to motivate her players and say, look, this is what people think. We're not supposed to expect to go in and win this game. Maybe that's the tactic she's taken. But I mean, she has always had that just edge to her in press conferences. You just never know what she's going to say.
I'm reminded of a couple of coaches that I've heard stories about. Skip Bertman, you've heard, will throw a guy out there and he's getting crushed on a Tuesday or something. It's a different era of baseball, but we'll wear this one. Like, who cares? Like, it is what it is. You've heard that stories. I can't point to any specific game, but I've heard Ronnie Rance and Patrick Coogan and Doug Thompson and some of those guys talk about things that went on in the mid to late 90s there. And then I think about like Chuck Daly with the Dream Team, who apparently rigged that college game against them, so they got beat, so they would take, like, I don't know how you do that, but like, so that the guys would take it a little bit more seriously. Like, that's all I can think of in terms of these types of motivational tactics. I'm fascinated by it, and I won't get to go and see what the pregame talk looks like. I don't know what her communication is like with Bob Starkey and that staff. I don't know how she'll handle substitutions differently or not. Maybe it has no impact on the game at all, but it certainly struck me. And like, I'm not going to completely lie to her. I have not watched the South Carolina women's basketball team dribble one basketball this year, not one. I'm well aware that Asia Wilson was very good in her time. I know Dawn Staley's always got awesome teams. I mentioned Camila Cardosa, who I remember from last year's dust-up in the SC tournament and all that kind of stuff. Like, I'm aware of the rivalry. I don't know what they got this year because I don't watch them play on Sundays. So it is what it is. But I am a little bit fascinated to see what the scoreboard reads here and see kind of where LSU measures up. My contention has been, based on what I know about this LSU women's basketball team, that they're probably one big short of being a real threat. But they could prove me wrong today, I think, if they can go out there and win.
Yeah. The South Carolina, I haven't watched a lot of them this year either, but they are a really balanced team this year. They've got, I think, 4 or 5 players that average somewhere around 10 points. So they're not going to rely on just a few players. LSU is going to rely pretty heavily on 3 players, obviously Flau'jae Johnson, Anissa Morrow, Michaela Williams, for their scoring. So if LSU can control the boards, which is always really important in the women's game, then they have a chance. I will say that I agree with you though on the front of but South Carolina doesn't really have a Cardoso this year, so that's going to be something that is going to be a problem for South Carolina if they can try to control the paint, which I don't think they're going to be able to do as much as they could last year. So
I'll tell you this: me and Dawn Staley are at odds this weekend because 1, she has her team playing against my alma mater in basketball, and 2, she's a huge Philadelphia Eagles fan, and I'm on the Commanders. So me and Dawn Staley, not friendly acquaintances this weekend. We'll see what happens on Monday.
She might be wearing multiple times. She's worn an Eagles jersey on the sideline.
I'm for that. Look,
she'll probably be doing that honestly today.
She trusts me. Kim will have something on. Yeah. So Dawn wants to counter that with some Eagles gear. I'm all for it. I just hope both our teams lose this weekend. That's our look at LSU women's basketball against South Carolina coming up an hour and 18 minutes from right now. You can certainly hear Patrick Wright and company on the call coming up over on Talk 107.3. We'll come back and close things out for this week. Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com is the website. Jonathan Carver and his team are fantastic to work with. I told you the story of one of the instances that they told me about where they were able to help a new client out with their commercial policy. They had 5 different properties that were insured under one umbrella for $1 million of general liability insurance. They rewrote the policy to give each of the 5 locations $1 million, so $5 billion in coverage, and the premium did not change. That's a big deal. Big deal, especially if you have an incident that happens that cuts in to that annual limit. That's the kind of thing that they're going to do for you that if you're a business owner, you may not know about. You may just give the specs over and say, hey, what's the premium going to be? And if that's the case, you may end up with an issue on your hands over the course of the next policy period. Trust the experts at the Highland Insurance Group to dive into your policy and make sure that everything reads the right way and that it reads the best way for your business. It's a new year. It's a new opportunity for you to get into that insurance policy and make sure that it performs properly for your business. Contact Jonathan Carbo and his team at the Highland Insurance Group. They're online at HighlandIG.com. That's HighlandIG.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Quirks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
I'm a little bit bummed, just a little bit, just a smidge. Got a text that Cade Anderson has already pitched out at the scrimmage today. He threw 2 great innings, struck out the side in the first inning against the starters. Anthony Ianson has already pitched, and Connor Ware is currently pitching, and I'm still on the radio. So I would not be able to see any of those 3 guys today. The option was for me to go to the scrimmage today or to go on Sunday. Looks like I'm probably going to go on Sunday and see what I can see there.
All right. I mean, that's okay. You got plenty of time to see these guys hunt before the season starts. You'll be all right.
I need more baseball.
It's coming, Hunt.
I need more baseball. I can't. I mean, the Saints aren't playing games. LSU's portal season's done. I got to be real honest with you. I'm not super optimistic about tomorrow evening at 7:30. That doesn't feel great.
Is there a line for that game yet, or
it'll be tomorrow?
I mean,
let's throw a guess out there. We'll.
I'm gonna say 11.
Oh, that's not near enough.
Really? I know it's in Coleman, but
it's got to be 16.
Really?
I mean, what do you think the score is going to be?
Okay, I don't disagree with you, but I mean, a conference game.
No, but I'm asking, what do you think? What would you project the score to be?
Probably like 92 to 70, maybe.
I would say somewhere in the neighborhood of 97-70.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 27 points.
Okay. I don't know why, Hunt, but I feel like LSU is going to acquit themselves better in this game. I don't know why I feel that way, but I
think LSU on the right night can absolutely play with Ole Miss. I think LSU could potentially play with like Florida at home. This is the worst matchup in the league.
It is.
Because LSU can't score, and Alabama just scores all the time. So I honestly, I give them a chance on some given nights. I gave them a chance to go to College Station and win.
And they had a
top
chance.
15 team, and they were tied at halftime or whatever. This is a nightmare. Like
it is.
They're a freight train, and there just aren't that many teams that can play with them. And I just don't think that LSU is at this point. So that's kind of where I am on that. So do we think the Saints hire a coach this weekend?
No,
it
doesn't seem like it. I mean, they're now like we've talked about it. Now that the bigger fish, I guess you could say, have already landed in places, now it's just about the Saints have, like we've said again, that they have their choices on who they want, who their options are. So now it's just going to be about narrowing it down.
You a Brady or a McCarthy guy or Weaver?
For some reason, I just feel I don't know why, but like I almost everybody is on the thought process of, all right, let's get in a young coach, offensive-minded coach that is going to change the culture. I don't know if Joe Brady. I just feel like I don't think, in my opinion, I don't know that he's ready for this challenge. He might be. He very well could be. I mean, I don't think many people probably thought Sean Payton was ready for the challenge when he joined the Saints. So I'm on the side of getting a guy like Mike McCarthy, who's been there before, and has built a culture before. But I can see both sides.
I don't know. I think it's going to be Brady. We'll see. You got to take it or leave it?
It doesn't look like it, actually.
We got 4 minutes to go the rest of the way. By the way, we just did start talking about baseball there. We also opened the show talking about baseball. If you've got the baseball itch and you were not able to listen to Jay Johnson today at Media Day, I've got a story up at LouisianaSports.net. It's on the top of the home page that kind of details his trip through the lineup and through the depth chart and that kind of stuff. I will get into far greater detail both on this show and on LouisianaSports.net over the next 3 weeks talking about this team, but it was kind of a surface-level intro. So if you're not somebody when LSU's playing football games against Oklahoma and Florida and Alabama that wants to hear about fall baseball, I get that. That's a reasonable take. But there are a lot of you that don't want to hear that in October, but do when January rolls around. So if you're looking to kind of ease your way back into some college baseball, then go ahead and check my story out at LouisianaSports.net. I think to kind of give a 30,000-foot view of it, there are 7 or 8 pitchers that he feels like have the opportunity to become starters or that ace closer or 2 closers. He gave those names out, and I talked about them at the top of the show, and you can read about them in the story. He talked about the catcher spot. That's going to be Luis Hernandez and Cade Arambiti's spot right now. I don't think that Blaze Priester nor Eddie Yaman are going to be in that running right now. 3 weeks can certainly change things, but it feels like Priester is more of an opportunity to be a DH, and the other 2 guys will catch a little bit more. Talked about the decision on the left side of the infield with Milam and Braswell and what they're going to do there. I got a text earlier today that says that Braswell's playing shortstop and Milam's at third today. I would guess that probably changes tomorrow. I think they've just flip them and just kind of take a look. They couldn't do that as much because Milam had a stress fracture in his foot last spring that took a while to heal. into the summer, and then he got sick during fall ball. So they're still looking at that. But then you got the outfield where there's like 7 guys that could play, and then they're just going to have to sift through. And my thought is that those 7 guys are likely going to see a pretty sizable amount of at-bats early in the season to see kind of who gets going to start things. But look, Ashton Larson didn't play very much early last year, and he became a starter late in the season. Stephen Milam won that job at second base, a few weeks into the season. That took a little bit of time. So you never surely know, as you said here, in January, but it's always fun to kind of watch how it shakes out. So if you're ready to get into some baseball action, I'll certainly be talking about it almost every day over the next 3 weeks as I get out there and watch a little bit of the scrimmages, and we'll be updating things on LouisianaSports.net day to day, talking about a little bit of baseball. It looks like a pretty good baseball team that LSU's got. And if you're a real sicko and want to hear about some of the other teams in the Southeastern Conference, I was watching some of Joe Healy and Mark Etheridge's team previews over at Highway to Hoover. You can find them on YouTube. They're only like 25 minutes long, and you can kind of sift through and see the ones that you're interested in seeing about. Just incidentally, doesn't sound like it's going to be a great year for Ole Miss. LSU doesn't play them, but I don't think it's going to be very good.
I mean, is there?
That's the end of an era.
Yeah, I would say it's
like
got to be, right? Like
they were one game away from the end of the era, and then they weren't, and then they won a championship, and now they'll build a statue of him and send him on his way. But that's just the way that it goes.
Real quick here, I
Yeah.
don't know if you got a chance to read. Jeff Passan wrote an article about the Dodgers and just what they've been doing with all these signings and how they've kind of rocked the trend of how to structure contracts. I'm just curious on your thoughts on it. Apparently, there's a possibility of a lockout in 26 with the collective bargaining agreement and everything. So, how do you think that they're talking about a salary cap? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't think they're going to put a salary cap in. I just don't think you're going to find enough players in almost any other player that are willing to do what Shohei Ohtani did, which is to defer hundreds of millions of dollars until after his playing days and to play for $1 million a year. Like, that's just not a sustainable thing.
Yeah.
And they got lucky with that. He's the best player they got, and then they were able to pay, and they're willing to pay more than everybody else. And it terrifies me as a Cubs fan because you have to go through them to win.
Yes.
But I also just massively applaud it and say, yeah, that's your job as the team owner in a game that just rewards you to spend money. Go spend money. I think it's fantastic. So we'll have a ton to do on Monday. We're pulling for Jaden on Sunday night. We'll have some baseball to talk about, LSU basketball as well, Saints coaching talk. Until there is no more Saints coaching search, we'll be doing that as well. Hope everybody has an awesome and fairly warm weekend. That's going to drive you home next on After Further Review. Appreciate our friends at Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. We'll take a couple days. We'll be back Monday, same time, same place, for another edition of The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge, genesisofbatonrouge.com is that website, and that's where you can find every car that's on the lot. It's online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. The entire line was given the IIHA top safety picks. Some of them were top safety picks plus. That goes from the entry-level vehicle all the way to the highest-end vehicle. They don't shortchange you on safety for one step of the way. Every single one of them has the same standard safety features. It's very, very important to the folks at Genesis, and it's very, very important to you when you're in the market for a new vehicle. So obviously their style, they're sleek, they're comfortable, they drive phenomenally well, they got all the bells and whistles you want, but they're also an incredibly safe vehicle to drive. Get on by Airline at Piku, just across from Women's Hospital, and see the lot. See the line of vehicles. Work with their team of brand ambassadors. It's a fantastic organization, and they're great to work with. It's Genesis of Baton Rouge, and you can find every car that's on the lot online at genesisofbatonrouge.com.